Next up, we welcome the second panel of today to discuss building trust and future innovations. So, next up, we have, of course, our moderator, Alexandra Jarry-Bourne, who's the VP of Customer Success at Adform. And then we have a lovely speaker lineups. We have David Caragliano, the Senior Manager of Government Affairs and Public Policy at Google, Chloe Nicholls, the Head of Adtech at IB UK, Cecile Blanc, the Global Head of Growth at GroupM, and Nate Pinkston, the Head of Growth and Retail Media Advertising. So a warm welcome to you, Alexandra. I'm going to hand it over to you to get the show on the road. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone. Can you see me and hear me well? I don't think my camera is working.
Yep.
Yeah,
All good.
it is.
All
okay,
good.
Perfect, cool. So welcome to our panel, which is called Trust and Transparency for Future Innovations. You presented the guests already, but I'll let them to introduce themselves. On my side, I'm Alexandra Jarry-Bourne. I'm the VP Customer Success for Adform. David, do you want to start introducing yourself?
Sure. Thanks so much, Alexandra. Hi, everyone. I'm David Caragliano. I'm on Government Affairs and Public Policy team, where I support our ads products. And in particular, I'm focused on ad safety issues and really feel privileged to be joining you all today.
Cecile, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, Chloe. Hello, everybody. My name is Cecile Blanc, and I head up growth for CoPilot, which is GroupM's proprietary AI platform to supercharge programmatic media buying for our clients.
Right, Chloe, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Chloe Nicholls, Head of Adtech at IB UK, very focused on trust and transparency and leading the gold standard certification program.
Thanks. And Nate?
I'm Nate Pinkston. I'm with Microsoft Advertising. I head up growth for our retail media business and specifically focus on how we can bring our new products and innovations to market, including things like AI.
Great. So we can't talk about future innovations without mentioning AI. So David, my first question is going to be for you. What is Google's background history when it comes to AI, and where did the journey start for you guys?
Thanks so much for the question. Of course, at Google, AI is something that we've been working on for a long time. So let me just quickly recap the journey. I guess back in the early 2000s is when we started using machine learning to show suggestions and recommendations and improve the quality of ads. And then I think it was in the 2010s where we really made progress integrating AI across bidding, shopping campaigns, keywords, analytics, and more. And then 2016 was a pivotal moment for us because our CEO, Sundar Pichai, formally declared that Google was an AI-first company. And of course, in 2017, Google invented the transformer and kickstarted the whole LLM revolution. Briefly, I should add, soon after that, in 2018, is when we announced our AI principles, right? So that was after extensive consultation, and those are our principles around how we're going to develop AI, what applications we will deploy and what we won't do. And so really AI is woven into everything we do at Google. And this is an area we're super excited about. I think you're going to see really bold innovations coming that are going to make AI more helpful for everybody. But we want to balance that boldness with responsibility, right? And with a multi-stakeholder approach. Our approach at Google really can be summed up as bold, responsible, and together, because that multi-stakeholder element is so important.
Bold and responsibility for AI, so good. Still, you're leading growth for CoPilot, which is GroupM's AI platform. So what about you? When was CoPilot created, and when did it all start for you?
It started about 7 years ago, which is where CoPilot started being incubated. And GroupM's business is to buy media in the best possible way for our clients. So our thinking around AI is very pragmatically linked to, can it bring better outcomes for our clients in terms of return from their media buying? Where CoPilot started was doing bidding optimization for each line item under a campaign. And then the journey was to go beyond that, to do not just bidding optimization, but also budget allocation across each of the lines so that at any moment throughout the campaign, you know that your next media dollar is going to the place that delivers the best return. And then last year, we launched one level above that, the capability to do bidding optimization and budget allocation, not just across line items, but actually across platforms, which unlocks the next level of unlocks the next pockets of performance. And then the next step beyond that, if we look in a crystal ball in a few months, years' time, is to go one level above that again and include in the future social and search. And David said for Google, right, like we also very much balance performance and principle. And from the beginning, we were very much pushing a no black box approach to AI. And actually CoPilot is called CoPilot because we strongly believe that a human should be in charge. Like our clients entrust their media budgets to their agencies, and AI is not about letting the keys to an automation platform and losing control. It's absolutely about empowering humans to do their best work for the client. And so for years, CoPilot has been investing development and time and a lot of love from our designers and UX people into providing very detailed insights and clear data visualizations about what the AI is doing in the background. How did it find the pockets of performance it found, so that our clients can see it at any point in the campaign and have transparency into what the AI has learned, which they can then infuse into the rest of the campaign cycle. And then just to finish on our journey and how we think about the place of AI in our great ecosystem, is that for us, it's better performance. Like, again, it's about the clients we serve. But better performance doesn't just mean more. We talked about it in the previous panel about sustainability, and Joe, my colleague, who's in actually the same room as myself right now, because we had a little fire alarm incident, said it best when he said fewer, better. And that's also what CoPilot enables. So better quality, working with our clients on a journey towards more sophisticated use cases, moving away from proxy media goals like clicks and closer to actual business goals, like attention optimization, like offline sales optimization, and balancing performance and principle. So we can optimize towards more sustainable domains. We can push performance while protecting a minimum level of spend on certain types of media supplies, such as local news websites. So it's all about trust that the AI will do its best for the client spend, and transparency into what the AI is learning.
Great. I didn't know the story around CoPilot's name, the tech and the human. Very smart. Nate, do you have any comments on your side regarding Microsoft's approach to AI?
Yeah, very similar to my colleagues here. We came to the market with a partnership with OpenAI. Folks may have heard of ChatGPT that we've helped bring to market. And we've been infusing AI across all of our products, building out how it comes to life in our various product formats across our ecosystem. But I'll certainly echo what they said, and the principles around responsible AI have been infused from the beginning about how we think about what AI should look like in the market, how it can be used. So transparency is absolutely core to that. The other one is accountability that I'll mention, and it's really important to think about how accountability is manifested in what you do and how the AI is brought to life. And some of the other ones that we think about is fairness and inclusiveness. So as we think about AI and how bias might manifest, that's also something that's really important that we look to monitor. And so we're bringing AI into many products and getting them in the hands of consumers as much as possible. But that's certainly a big part of how we think about and look back at and reflect on how we should do further innovation in AI and look at what it can do to be a great co-pilot partner to helping make you more efficient and empowering people to work more effectively. But it's important to think about also how that's happening and look at the future potential, what it can do, good and bad.
Of course. Now let's look at towards what the industry is doing. Chloe, can you talk to us about how the IAB is building trust and transparency with stakeholders?
Definitely. From our perspective, we know there are a lot of tech lab standards in existence which will bring increased transparency to the industry. For example, demand chain object, or D chain. has recently been included in the gold standard, which is IAB UK's vehicle for promoting some of the standards in existence to prove and demonstrate how the industry is self-regulating. So in this proposal that we made this year, we wanted to include demand chain object because we know that it provides end-to-end transparency, which is critical in tackling things from scam ads, which especially in the UK is a big concern as UK's government focus on fraud means that there will be further scrutiny into the work our industry is doing. So being able to prove that we are adhering to best practices and that our members are is critical. But not only that, I think these Tech Lab standards that I mentioned, they offer a solution for a lot of concerns in the supply chain. So bringing it back to AI and whether it's a deep fake or a creative guideline which has not been watermarked correctly, having that end-to-end transparency where you can effectively work backwards throughout the supply chain to address with the DSP, in most cases, who has served that ad, that there is a concern, whether that's scam ads or something else. We are future-proofing the work we continue to do by ensuring we have the correct foundations in place. We have also built a guide, which is being released soon, which helps connect some of those regulatory concerns to the existing standards, which help tackle them, to empower and enable the whole industry to take advantage of them, use them, and prove that we are using the best practices to tackle some of the concerns which can come with this huge growth change, and doing so in a way that I think will really set ourselves up to prove there is foundational trust in the industry.
Good, very good news about the introduction of D-Chain, definitely. And what about you, David? How are you managing trust and transparency with policymakers and the overall ecosystem in regards to AI at Google? And what's the number one question you're being asked?
Yeah, first, let me just say it's following on Chloe, it's really great to see us making progress as an industry, as she describes. So kudos. So when I think about our approach here, like stepping back, I think that Google's approach, the way we rolled out Bard, I think is illustrative of our approach. So our strategy there was to really show our work, to be methodical, and to launch that experimental product in a gradual and responsible way. So a rushed approach of a product like that risks backfiring vis-a-vis regulators and maybe even the public, especially in the EU. And so we conducted a lot of outreach to explain how with Bard we were being compliant with existing EU laws like GDPR, our approach to DSA, and providing specific proposals to regulators on how that product might be addressed under the EU AI Act. So we took time to gather feedback and first opened up Bard to a limited audience back in March, and then not until July launched in the EU. And so similarly, there are a number of super exciting AI-driven ads products that we are beta testing and rolling out in a gradual way. And I think that is really indicative of our approach. Bold, but again, responsible.
Cecile, what about you? What's the number one questions that you're being asked on your side?
I like the bold but responsible.
I have a number one question I can get to, but I don't want to monopolize. So Cecile, please go ahead.
Sure. So the number one question. So my role is all about helping our GroupM clients make the most of AI for media buying. So again, very pragmatically, the number one question by far that I get is how will CoPilot use my data, our data? I think there's a great level of awareness and of the value, but also of the risk associated with data. Hence the responsible part that David was just mentioning. And I have to say, marketers are absolutely right to ask those questions to any tech providers. So we welcome that kind of questions. And the answer from a CoPilot perspective is that, again, it's all about trust and transparency. So we have data explanatory document that we share with clients so that they know exactly what data CoPilot will use and how. And it states explicitly, for example, again, very pragmatically, but their log files will be stored separately in our system to other clients. And that's the first layer of reassurance. Another piece is that CoPilot never rewrites the rules. So we're part of GroupM and Choreograph, and our teams are embedded throughout the whole campaign cycle. And the whole point of that is that we're there to advise upfront on, let's say, optimum balance of audience targeting so that it's, yes, a good audience pool, a relevant audience, that makes the best use of the data strategy and audience insights gathered by our Choreograph teams, but without being so restrictive that scale and CoPilot's ability to learn would be hindered. So once the rules are set, CoPilot never rewrites them. We don't touch frequency caps, we don't touch audience targeting, we don't touch supply inclusion lists. We're compatible. We were talking in the previous panel about supply path optimization. We don't touch any of that. CoPilot's role is to find better performance within the boundaries, sometimes called golden rules, that were agreed with the clients. And then CoPilot is part of WPP. So we adhere to very strict security standards. We're always on top of the data and security charter updates, and we undergo very regular penetration tests, for example. The question of security of the data and how it's used is a great question, and definitely all marketers should ask that of their tech and AI providers.
Responsibility and protecting the data of your clients. David, sorry, you wanted to add the number one question that you're being asked?
Yeah, maybe it's because I'm on the government affairs and public policy team, but I'm getting a lot of questions about how are you dealing with misinformation and disinformation in the digital age? And it's an important and hard question, right? That goes to brand safety and responsibility, right? And so I want to flag that some really exciting and important developments that will require industry collaboration, and that is efforts at Google and in other companies to roll out a toolkit to address issues of content provenance, metadata, watermarking, which Chloe alluded to earlier, really important tools that require cross-industry solutions. At Google, we recently announced SynthID, so that's a new beta tool for watermarking and identifying AI-generated images. Some of you may have seen a few weeks ago, we also made an announcement that election advertisers need to self-disclose the use of AI in their ads. We think that's really important. Of course, there's a balance to be struck here, right? Should all AI-enhanced ads have some kind of big external-facing label that says AI enhanced? Probably not. That would lead to label fatigue and wouldn't necessarily be helpful to consumers. And I think we all in our industry have a role to play educating lawmakers and putting in place industry best practices.
Definitely. And before going to retail media in a second, how do you see this evolving in the next 12 months? And what role do you think regulation will play?
Yeah, looking ahead to the next 12 months, we've got so many elections around the globe. Obviously, I'm from the US, 2024 looms large. In the EU here, I'm in Brussels right now, we have elections coming up, EU Parliament elections in June. I know it's top of mind for lawmakers here in Brussels. It's driving the EU political ads regulation, which is in trilogues. I think now there is in terms of regulation, there is a regulatory framework here in the EU for dealing with political elections, misinformation, civic discourse, these sorts of things. I'm thinking about the DSA. I'm thinking about the EU Code of Practice on disinformation, the soon emerging political ads regulation. When these are done right, they leave space or even delegate responsibility to industry associations like IAB, for example, to develop standards for implementation, the technical standards. And so I think it's important for us in the context of the regulation that's coming, in the context to the scrutiny coming from these elections and AI-generated content, that we are advocating to preserve and defend the ads-based business model and we're urging lawmakers to avoid overly prescriptive solutions and empowering industry to come up with more agile approaches.
Cecile, anything to add to the next 12 months before we go to retail?
What strikes me in everything that Chloe mentioned and David just then is that all of this is not new. We have also programmatic as an ecosystem, as an industry, faced these problematics and challenges before, and it's not new, and we expect technology to continue to evolve towards favor. The market will always favor trust and transparency, and that's what should drive investment. And certainly that's the case for us, as I said before, and how we position CoPilot and how we use our clients' data. And so we talked about getting better, more transparent ways to determine the real value of every impression so that, again, can have fewer, better ads to have the same impact. And attention metrics is an example of that. Over the past couple of years, we've been able to start buying and optimizing against impressions that drive the highest attention. And that's great. But like any new metric, it needs to be tested, it needs to be validated, we need to agree on benchmarks before it can be more widely adopted. Same for sustainability, again, which was the topic of the previous panel. So we just expect to see that trend continue over the next 12 months, and we certainly intend to play our part.
All right. Yeah, as a second topic regarding future innovations, we're going to talk about retail media. It was a hot topic this year so far. I'm sure it's going to be next year. And it has a lot of power regarding first-party data, engaged audiences. So what's the status here? How can we ensure investments in this space are built around trust and transparency? And what have we learned from other channels that we could apply to retail media? That's a lot of questions into one. Cecile, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, definitely a hot topic. And again, from the specific perspective of CoPilot, with the lens of being part of GroupM, very much focused on investing our clients' media budgets in the best possible way. What we've noticed is that there's a concentration on a few platforms. We have Amazon, we have the Walmart DSP, we see lots more ecosystem forming, but it's difficult today to implement a holistic approach to media buying that would unlock the next pocket of performance, because each network operates as a walled garden. So buying and optimization is currently a bit disconnected. What we expect to see and what we're working towards is to leverage clean rooms and advanced modeling to be able to stitch together those ecosystems of retail media and create a more robust picture of performance so that we can also predict better, do better planning, better optimization. And perhaps from our perspective, the key challenge is to crack consistency in measurement, I think, which is a recurring theme today and certainly true for retail media, and particularly how we focus on proving and therefore using that idea of incremental performance lift from moving budget from one retail ecosystem to another, and how they add to each other as opposed to perhaps have some sort of overlap in the audiences and the performance. So incrementality is a big focus, and in that domain, CoPilot is working on closing the loop, for example, with offline sales. And this is something that we've launched for a few clients now, leveraging NCS data, IRI data, to give marketers full trust that their media dollars are directly correlated with actual business outcomes and sales measured by their preferred provider in a transparent way. So what's great with AI is that if you can measure it, you can optimize to it. So those measurement providers that sometimes were used after the fact can be used during the campaign to get the best out of media investment.
And Nate, you're head of growth and retail at Microsoft. So I'm sure you have lots to say about retail media and trust and transparency.
Yeah, and retail media is a young and evolving, I would say it's on the early parts of its stages of maturity. Just like Cecile mentioned, there is a situation where it's pretty fragmented. There's a concentration of a few large players and then a lot of other players that have gotten into the market because it is a hot topic. It's a great source of new revenue streams for retailers. But I think the key thing to think about with that is retailers are not media companies. And that's really what we're seeing now is retailers are going through an evolution to become true media partners to advertisers. And they've never played that role before. And so that's really, I think, the focus of how we're going to see retail media evolve is they need to become more like media businesses. They'll over time, just by virtue, I think, of the push from industry and advertisers, start to adhere to more standards, have that transparency, and provide more ability to look and compare across platforms. I think groups like IAB Europe are really leading the way there. They've just released their Retail Media 101 guide. And so that's a great start to look at how the industry can set standards and really push for how advertisers and retailers should be working together. Because if you don't have standards, what happens is, of course, every retailer approaches it differently. They don't have media backgrounds. So you get a lot of disparate ways of approaching metrics, transparency, attribution windows look different across multiple programs. And so it's really key to look for ways like partnering with the IAB Europe, and in the US, similarly, they've just done a measurement and buying guide. And so those are ways that I think we can see retail media starting to become more mature. And what we really see is, and I love that Cecile mentioned things like offline measurement. We've been able to bring in-store sales for about 4 years now, and starting to stitch together true deterministic attribution to provide that transparency is so key. Because if you don't know what you're measuring, if you don't know those business rules, if you don't know what the windows are and how they compare to the other 4 or 5 channels that are driving, say, that same sale on that retailer, it becomes really difficult to say, is that a valuable dollar that I've just spent in advertising? So I would encourage any advertisers or marketers on the call here to think about what are ways you can push for and demand that the programs you work with as an advertising and media partner are starting to provide at least that transparency. I think that's where we're going to start. Ultimately, there will become that more mature set of standards that people adhere to. But I think we'll see transparency come first. Cecile mentioned programmatic, and it's the same evolution that they went through. And so we're seeing now that retailers are just getting into the business. They're standing up new programs, and it's going to be driven, I think, by the industry folks like Chloe and the IAB to provide some expectation that there's got to at least be transparency first. With transparency will come that trust. And then I think you can allow marketers and advertisers to make smart decisions. How do you optimize? Where is that truly incremental dollar? And without that, you're going to see investment pull back. Retail media has seen this tremendous growth, but if you can't prove those are valuable spent dollars, those dollars are going to run out. And so I think one of the things we really focus on is providing that full transparency. We've had real-time metrics from the very beginning. Cecile keeps making great points around how you've got to be able to measure so you can optimize, and it's got to be real time. If you get a wrap-up report a month later, what are you going to do with that information? Except maybe next quarter you'll have something different. But I think that's something where we're looking to partner with as many of the advertisers and specifically the industry groups like IAB to help push for that. It's an education process too. So we do a lot of that for our retail partners and say, this is what a media business looks like. We can help you stand that up. But becoming a media business fundamentally is different than being on retail. And so it's an evolution. It's going to take a little bit of time, and we're on that journey.
Thanks, Nate. I think we just run out of time. Just for the audience, the IAB Europe guide that Nate just mentioned is on the IAB Europe website, and it's available. Thank you, everyone. It was a great panel. Thanks.